The fuel price hike in Karnataka, the middle class hit yet again. Well, Karnataka government has decided to hike both petrol and diesel prices by 3 rupees per litre. And of course, this comes as a post-poll shocker as well. Just days after the elections, the Congress government in Karnataka has decided to hike the fuel prices. In fact, the middle class already reeling under inflationary pressures have been hit yet again with this fuel price hike. On the ground, of course, there is anger. We had a lot of commuters this morning expressing their displeasure, inconvenience over the fuel price hike as well. And this has also led to a political slugfest with, of course, the BJP hitting out at the Congress government in Karnataka, threatening protests as well. In fact, the BJP has demanded a rollback. Joining me at this hour, we'll of course be joined by a lot of commuters through the show, but I'm being joined by Aishwarya Mahadev, spokesperson of the Congress. Thanks very much, Ms. Mahadev, for speaking with us. Your response to what the BJP has said, one charge, of course, also is that, the state funds have been depleted because of the multiple welfare schemes and the Congress guarantees, promised by the Congress government in Karnataka. How would you respond to that charge?
Good afternoon, Vedant. I think first and foremost, for all the sort of criticism and the brickbats that the BJP pushes at the guarantees, they're also implementing the same and similar guarantees in their own state, whether it was Ladli Behna in Maharashtra or what they're doing elsewhere. For them, the guarantees were the promises that brought us to power, and we believe it is our responsibility that what freebies, as they called wrongly, is social welfare measures that were essentially targeted to help the common man against price rise and inflation, right? And the BJP today wants to protest against the price rise in Karnataka. Fine, the prices now are 102 for petrol and 88 for diesel, if I'm not wrong. I request the BJP here to first go to the states of Maharashtra, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, where the prices are well and above 105 a litre for petrol, all the way up to 109 in Andhra Pradesh, and diesel also has seen similar rises. I believe that is politicizing a revenue and an administrative measure that should have been taken, and I'll tell you why we took this. Because for all the promises of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cooperative federalism, mind you, the same man in 2014 who said he'll bring petrol and diesel prices 35 and 27 under that rate respectively, has sufficiently and significantly disadvantaged southern state consistently.
Fair
Whether
point.
it is tax yes, Vedant?
Yeah, that's a fair point you're making. But, would you in a sense concede that, the petrol price hike in Karnataka, the post-poll petrol price hike, is it in some way related to the depleting state funds? And would you concede that, ultimately the middle class is hit because of this, already reeling under inflationary pressures?
Absolutely not at any point, Vedant. I'll tell you why Karnataka's revenues are suffering. Because out of an entire 47 lakh crore budget that the central government has, UP gets 2.18 lakh crore for it, right? And all of the south together gets only 1.92 lakh crore, and Karnataka gets a fraction of that, right? For every 100 rupees we send, because we send, we're far more productive in terms of the funds we send to the center, we get only 13 rupees. UP gets 333. Bihar gets close to 900 rupees out of that. We have seen from the Finance Commission that we've seen a reduction of 1% of what we used to get from the 14th Finance Commission to the 15th, which means close to 60,000 crores. What we are owed is not being given. The special recommendatory grant of 15,000 crores to Karnataka from this Finance Commission has also not been given. Of GST, we pay close to 13 or 14,000 rupees every citizen as GST every year, because we are a larger destination compared to UP and Bihar, where they spend less than 2,000 or 3,000 as GST. The larger idea for the BJP is that they want to target the guarantees. The guarantees are safeguarding Kannadigas today against the inflationary pressures, against price rise, and our exchequer suffering solely because of the fact that the central government has consistently cheated Karnataka and all the southern states.
I'll try and get a response from a BJP spokesperson also on that. But Aishwarya Mahadev, quickly, my last question to you before we start getting callers as well. Do you think that very electorate that has voted for you, whether it's the assembly elections or even in the Lok Sabha elections, do you think that would be let down by this decision of the Congress government in Karnataka?
Vedant, let's make this very clear. The crude for this country, and mind you, the crude was trading at a barrel when we were buying it in 2014. And you saw that a massive reduction all the way up to 71 or 78 rupees, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
that the Modi government inherited a massive oil slick for the reduction of crude oil prices, right? And after which, what used to be 70 odd rupees, you saw that the central government taxes, the amount given to oil marketing companies, the central pressures that work with the oil ministry, were what raised the prices everywhere. And the state, as part of a federalistic state, is allowed to also levy taxes. We request that now, even today, currently, just today, that Saudi Arabia said to its Southeast Asian buying partners, they are going to reduce the barrel cost also. Will the central government take the necessary measures to ease the inflationary pressures on people because of rising
Fair
fuel
point.
prices?
Let
I
me
think
take that
this
to
is
the
something
BJP
that the central
spokesperson.
government has to answer.
You have raised several important points. T. Sankirta of the BJP is also with us. Ma'am, your response to what Aishwarya Mahadev just said. She's raised several important points, and also the centre's track record on petrol prices hasn't been very impressive, particularly in the past 2 years either. So would you say that this outrage is selective only when it comes to opposition ruled states? All right, we seem to have lost the line with the BJP spokesperson. I'm being told that I'm being joined by a caller from Bengaluru. Go ahead and tell us. Nikit is joining us from Bengaluru. In fact, Nikit, go ahead and tell us, your response to this sudden post-poll fuel price hike.
I think we should stop calling it a fuel price hike, because not just the fuel increases, but a lot of other things increases. For example, the transport gets automatically costly. The vegetables get costly if we increase the fuel prices. So fuel prices is automatically interlinked to a lot of other stuff. So it's just increasing a lot of other prices, be it vegetables, fruits, or daily necessities. I think we should stop calling it a fuel price. Even the government, even if it's the BJP or Congress, I think they should stop calling it a fuel price, and they should just name it as an inflation. They're just raising the prices of everything. I think we should see it in that way.
That's a very important point you're raising, Nikit, that ultimately it sort of exacerbates the kind of inflationary pressures that we see. But, you yourself, I mean, where are you employed? Tell us a little bit about yourself, because this is something that, impacts everybody. It impacts people across the board as far as the middle class is concerned, the working class is concerned.
I travel to work. I travel to like 10 to 15 kilometers every day on a bike. So the route that I travel doesn't have a public transport, a regular public transport. So I take a bike, and in a city like Bangalore, there's massive traffic, and obviously when you get stuck in traffic, a lot of fuel gets burned. So I think it's going to be a huge burn on I'm what 26, 27-year-old guy who's just trying to make my life here in a metro city. So I think it's a huge burden, especially for everything. Not just we should stop calling it a burden on middle class. It's burden on even upper middle class. A lot of people, I think every sector is going to face the heat. And we should stop.
Right.
The politicians should just stop blaming each other, because it has done even in the BJP era. Now they are doing it in the Congress. And they should find some other ways to increase the revenue. I was told that
you've raised several important points, Nikit, and thanks very much for joining us with your views here on NDTV. I have the BJP spokesperson with us now. T. Sankirta of the BJP from Karnataka is joining us. Your response to what the Congress spokesperson said earlier, and even what our caller just said, that this is something that concerns everybody across the board, and that the centre's track record perhaps on fuel prices hasn't been very impressive, particularly in the past 2 years. Would you say that this is some sort of selective outrage, particularly when it comes to opposition ruled states? T. Sankirta, go ahead. All right, so we seem to have lost that line again with the BJP spokesperson. As we get more callers, okay, Aishwarya Mahadev, I'm being told, is still with us. Aishwarya, you just heard what what a regular office-going person just told us, that it's not just fuel price hike. Ultimately, it sort of mounts the inflationary pressures. It affects prices across the board, and it concerns everybody. So this sort of political bickering won't really help.
I think that's completely fair. I have nothing to disagree on that because fuel prices directly impact heavy industries. They directly impact the common man. They have a sort of, an avalanche of an effect on especially the lowest of the low in the socio-economic strata. And this is something that we have to address, which is why, Vedant, I'll come back to one simple thing, right? The central government, while Prime Minister Modi did apparently stop a war in Ukraine, he also decided to buy crude or buy gas or basically resources also from Russia at that point, which they hailed as a great diplomatic move. They were buying fuel at a far lower price, but at no point did they try and reduce the cost of it. What they have been doing is that the rising cost of oil processing and marketing companies, they're transferring that cost on to the final consumer, which during the UPA era, if you remember, we were in the middle of a crisis. The crude had risen to $140 a barrel, and the Manmohan Singh government still maintained, they took on the burden of that. But today, you can trace this from 2014, and I can say this on record, is that all the costs and the cess, all of that is being transferred onto the final consumer, while the government is still sitting on a pretty kitty of all the oil slick, no matter how much the crude falls or rises. And that is a very large problem. States that are deprived of resources and do not have revenue because they've been deprived of what they are constitutionally.
So again, it sort of comes back to that whole point of cooperative federalism that we were talking about earlier. And I wish I had a BJP rebuttal to that. But I'm being joined by Tarun from Delhi, in fact. Tarun, go ahead and tell us, what you have to say on this story.
Hey, hi. Thank you for putting me on the call. So my question is that primarily each of the middle income class people are suffering because of this price hike of petrol. And I do not know what the central government or the state government are doing. The petrol has not been yet put on a GST. Second piece, there is a big challenge when it comes to when the central government keeps on saying that they are buying fuel from Russia. In spite of that, buying fuel cheaply from that place, the benefit is not being passed to the common man. And last but not least, when we, a taxpayer, is paying money for all these things, it is being percolated to the central schemes like Manrega and passing on the food benefit to 80 crore people. Is it required? And we, as a common man, is being penalized for this.
So you've made several important points there, Tarun, and you seem to suggest that this is something that's not limited to one state. Ultimately, it's people across the country, who would suffer because of the kind of politics that we are seeing in the past couple of years. Is great emphasis on freebies, on sort of this sort of competitive welfareism. So you seem to suggest that ultimately it's the middle class which is battered, and there's no relief to them, despite all these promises and guarantees made by parties across the board.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks very much, Tarun, for joining us with that. I'm being told that Chandrasekhar from Mysuru is also with us. Chandrasekhar, go ahead. Tell us what you think of this fuel price hike. All right. So we seem to have lost that line with Chandrasekhar there. Aishwarya Mahadev, this kind of competitive welfareism that we see across the board, whether it's the BJP or the Congress, do you think that it does little good to the middle class, and ultimately these are just poll promises that don't really sort of materialize into any sort of benefits to your quote unquote labharti base, whether it's of the BJPs or the Congress?
Vedant, irrespective of how many people in the middle class do have the voice in the agency to come out on platform like yours to talk about it, I believe that schemes like Manrega, food security, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan were some of the things that have been a turning point and revolutionary for India as a country. And while the middle class and the upper middle class have a certain base, you realize the majority of this country still needs, our lowered communities are disenfranchised socioeconomically, and they do require the state to have a naturally paternalistic view towards their upliftment. While Narega was massively criticized during COVID, it was the only thing that kept wage workers, from starvation. While, food security was basically, again, criticized. You saw that during COVID, it became the largest distribution system to ensure that people did not go hungry. And I think that welfare is an essential function One. And the second thing is, whatever said and done, I believe it is a function of the state. While we prioritize industry, while we are necessarily capitalistic, and we do encourage the aspirations of people, that it is for us as a state to ensure that the poorest of the poor get what they can. Today, for example, I'll give you my own state, right? We bought in free bus travel for people. The KSRTC and the transport corporations in Karnataka that had been running, almost having their properties mortgaged and not being able to pay employee salaries in the last government, now has a record 4,000 crore profit. The externalities and the positive externalities of our schemes are massive, whether it is mothers having more money to give more nutritious food to their children, whether it is not having the burden of an electricity bill for.
So perhaps we need to look at these guarantees and welfare schemes from a more holistic point of view, is what you're suggesting. I'm being joined by another caller. Chandrasekhar from Mysuru is back with us. Chandrasekhar, go ahead. Yes,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
And the main problem here is, see, the Congress spokeswoman, whoever was talking, were these problems not there before the... And once you talk about all these things, see, it is not helping anybody. See, finally cascading happens where everybody, whoever is getting it also, see, you are stealing from the man and giving it to the woman. Is that what you are...
Okay. Aishwarya Mahadev, would you like to respond to that? The caller seems to suggest that ultimately you are, whatever welfare schemes you're talking about, you are financing them using the taxpayers' money. That is what essentially the caller seemed to have suggested. Your response?
I think it is extremely pedantic to be saying things like taking from the van and giving to the woman. And this is a line we heard from the BJP when we gave women, who we believe are the backbone of all society, the money that is there. And on the same argument, the BJP also says they've transferred all PDS beneficiaries to women because women are the backbone. So there's various ways of looking at it. But let me just tell you, the entirety of my guarantees cost us close to 58,000 crores. If the special grant that
Aishwarya Mahadev, I'm sorry I have to interrupt you there because I'm being joined by the BJP spokesperson to quickly get a response to all that you've said. T. Sakirtha of the BJP is finally with us. Your response to what the Congress spokesperson has said, that the centre's track record on fuel prices hasn't really been very impressive. You promised a cut in prices, but that certainly has not been implemented, particularly in the past 2 years.
Firstly, since the Congress government has come to power in Karnataka from the last year, if you see, they have done only a few things. One is price rise and this one. Secondly, the thing that they are doing is corruption and looting the people, looting the Dalits. If you can see, the Valmiki Nigam 187 crores of rupees corruption can be seen as evident. There is a case that has been registered. The money which was reserved for the Dalits, 11,500 crore SEP TSP fund, had been diverted. This year, 14,000 crores worth of
Let's not go into 50 different directions, T. Sankirtha.
The government in Karnataka is very
prices.
incompetent and very insensitive, and they definitely, Siddaramaiah, who has presented 14 long budgets, is really today in the hands of the Congress party, has become incompetent. Hence, this price rise has been seen to the people of the Karnataka. So this is the sad state of the people in Karnataka. The government, after they coming to power, not even a single new scheme has been launched, not even a single development scheme or development grant has been given. So
but Mr. Sankirtha, the Congress says that it's because of the centre's second-hand treatment of certain opposition-ruled states that their state funds are depleting.
See, firstly, in the budget, it is very clearly stated and printed that a grant in aid and devolution of taxes has been granted. See, this is not the duty of Mr. Narendra Modi to come and collect taxes in Karnataka. It is the duty and responsibility of Mr. Siddaramaiah. They are incompetent here. They are not having the capability to collect enough taxes because they are giving targets to every department. If you see excise, they have given a target of 36,000 odd crores, which is not still being achieved. So their incompetency is definitely hurting the people of Karnataka. The pockets are burning. The pockets of the Karnataka people are burning due to their incompetency and insensitive. This is definitely an incompetent government which should be thrown out.
Okay, so that political war of words continues. Thanks very much, T. Sankirta and Aishwarya Mahadev, for joining us on the program. As we put the spotlight really on why the middle class is being hit yet again, as they're already reeling under inflationary pressures. Narayana Reddy is also joining us from Bengaluru. Narayana Reddy, go ahead and tell us what you think of this 3 rupee fuel price hike.
Good afternoon, Vedant, and good afternoon to all the panelists. See, what I wanted to make a point is, see, when they are increasing the petrol price or whatever, what they are telling the reason is they want to give the guarantees. I am not against the guarantees. But you give the guarantees who are qualified. Identify the qualified members and give it only to them. But just for your vote bank politics, you are giving guarantees to all the people and budget is empty now. And as a taxpayer in Bangalore, I am paying tax. GST I am paying, income tax I am paying, and now all the surcharges I am paying for fuel. What am I going to get the benefit back?
Okay, and also tell us about yourself, because I think that is really important. The fact that such a fuel price hike affects people across the board. So, are you a daily commuter? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how this fuel price hike will impact you.
I am a IT employee, Vedant. See, problem is I am only paying the tax. And also I am a sufferer between the fight between the Congress and BJP. What are the development activities are happening in the state now? Budget is empty due to this guarantee schemes. If you have 100 rupees income, put 50 rupees into the schemes, 50 rupees to development schemes.
So ultimately, you seem to suggest that, it's the taxpayer which is suffering, no matter how many guarantees are announced, no matter how many welfare schemes are announced.
I am a income tax payee. I am paying 20% or 30% slab, whatever I am getting in the office.
Okay.
When I am coming out, whatever I am purchasing, I am putting again GST. When I am putting whatever fuel, there again charges. I am paying road tax. Everything, only middle class. Zero benefits for us.
So it's almost impossible for a regular employee to save some money from their salaries. Thanks very much, Narayana Reddy, for joining us with your views. Nisha is also joining us from Bengaluru. Nisha, go ahead.
Yeah, Vedant, I think my main concern over here is to what extent will, so many people like us suffer on the basis of a fight between state and center. At some point, center is increasing taxes and the state is increasing taxes. At one point, do people like us start taking political parties seriously or the government seriously in terms of what their pre-election promises are? Things just change overnight. Once elections are done, there's, price hike again. And I don't think they realize in a city like Bengaluru, so many of us who are living, we're just young people trying to make a life and build a career for ourselves. And the fact that you end up spending so much money in very basic expenses just to go to and from your job in a city like Bengaluru, which has such a major traffic problem. And this is also going to, affect the other transportation services like Ola and Uber. So this stress just keeps getting added at the end of the day. What is the limit? Where does this end at some point?
Where does the buck really stop? Anisha, thanks very much for joining us with that. So there you heard it. Diverse voices, people from across the board, people from various sectors talking about how this is not just a fuel price hike, but it ultimately raises the inflationary pressures, and ultimately it's the middle class that continues to suffer.